Hi ladies and gents, welcome back to what should be quite a special video where we're going to be talking about the Horus Heresy series of books and why I think it's been generally poorly handled going forwards and what I would do to fix it if I was given the chance to be in charge. Bit quick fantasy of mine, I love writing books and I love reading stories. First of all, if you want some cool deals on your models, please head to Composite Games down below and enter in the promo code Northern Exile for 5% off your order at checkout. Considering you already get 20% off your order most of the time on most things that Composite Games do, that would add up to a 25% discount on any models you get. What an amazing deal. It helps out the channel. It helps out the channel a lot by giving me some money to spend on prizes and to get the Astral Blades done for some more videos. So, help us out and help yourself out at the same time when you're getting your own models. But anyway, moving on. Let us talk about the Horus Heresy. Now, most of the time, I was going to click that off for a minute. My main gripe with the Horus Heresy series is, well, do you know what? Let's just get into it rather than me sitting back and like just telling you what things are going on. Let me just get into it and double check what the hell's going on here. Let me just make sure. Yeah, okay, that's fine. So, Horus Heresy is a thing. Main thing I want to ask is, what the hell happened? Because the Horus Heresy series, to me, whenever I want to go and read a book from the Horus Heresy because I find, say, the Dark Angels interesting, as I did for writing the Astral Blades, I wanted to hear about the Dark Angels and what they were doing during the Horus Heresy. I couldn't. It was near indecipherable. You had to go onto Reddit and see this convoluted list that somebody had gotten together of all these different novels of the Dark Angels, and which ones were good and which ones were bad, which ones you could skip altogether. That should never be the case in a fantasy series. You should never be able to just skip a book, because it's rubbish and doesn't do anything for the story. This is one of the most poorly handled fantasy sci-fi series I've ever come across. And I'm not even saying that as a derider of Games Workshop, because generally I wanted this to be amazing. In 2006, Games Workshop had an opportunity to knock something out of the park, to take something and make it an amazing piece of science fiction drama. They had a chance to knock Dune right off his fucking perch. And they failed. They failed miserably. They failed because they wanted to nickel and dime you. They wanted to make as much money as they could from you. Instead of respecting the integrity of Warhammer 40,000 as a setting, instead of respecting the integrity of this wonderful thing that they've created, they hoard it out for as much money as they could. And in doing so, they ruin the integrity of that setting, in my eyes. In terms of a book series. You know, 40k will always be there. And it's wonderful that we have this vast tapestry of the Horus Heresy to fall back on. But as far as I'm concerned, they took a 4 out of 10 for the maximum money, rather than taking a 10 out of 10 for slightly less money. And I think that's a real shame. So, what are my main gripes? What's my problem with the Horus Heresy? Because a lot of you will really like the Horus Heresy. Well, the first thing is a constant muddying of the waters with storylines that meander and seem to go nowhere. I'm sure you've all read those Horus Heresy books, Looking at You, Unremembered Empire, right? The storylines that are there to put, they seem to be there to put characters on a treadmill or an exercise bike, because we can't have them going anywhere just yet, because we need to save them for the Siege of Terra, but we've got to find something for them to do in the meantime, so let's just throw them in over here and just talk about them for a bit. That seems to be like 60 to 70% of the Horus Heresy right now, is these books that don't actually accomplish anything, that don't move the story forward, that just give you wider context to a certain faction, which isn't what we're looking for. If we want wider context, we'll read the fucking Codex. We've got books for that already. We don't need wider context. We need to know what's going on and what the hell is happening in the story. We need your story to be going forwards. If you're a writer and your story isn't going forwards, you need to stop and go back and realise where you came off the tracks. Right? I teach that all the time. It's the one main thing that dissuades authors, is that they go off the tracks, they get muddied, they start meandering, and they don't do anything that drives the story forward, right? It's almost like they're scared to take a step forwards. Number 2, I need to make everything mainline canon, okay? Is the Nemesis book showing some assassins going after Horus and failing? Should that really be mainline canon? Should that be a mainline Horus Heresy book? Not in my estimation, it shouldn't be. Right? Scars as a novel is great. And it details a lot of the history of the White Scars. Should it be a mainline Horus Heresy book? I would argue no. Right? 90% of the Dark Angels books, right? Descent of Angels, things like that. Just, you're showing Caliban as it was way back in the day. Should that really be a Horus Heresy book? No. No, it absolutely shouldn't be. For me, the Horus Heresy series started to die with with their Descent of Angels. That's when it started to die. We just had Fulgrim, which in my opinion was the best of the original 5 Horus Heresy books. The original trilogy, Istvaan and Fulgrim. We just had the crowning achievement of what I thought Horus Heresy was going to be going forward. I thought this is going to be amazing. This is going to be like a 20 to 25 book series. I want every single one of them. This is great. And then I got Descent of Angels, and it was a good book on its own, but it was a terrible Horus Heresy book. It ground everything to a halt, and it gave you a real sense of, oh, this is what they're doing. They're milking us for every single penny that they can get out of us to read these books. And that's terrible. It doesn't need to be mainline canon. Do your own book for Dark Angels doing that thing if you want to. Do your own book for the White Scars and their origins if you want to. But don't muddle and bloat the mainline Horus Heresy series. Okay? Number 3. Too many cooks spoils the broth. The sheer number of authors' voices taking over the same character creates disjointed and almost schizophrenic characters. What I mean by that is that, you got these really talented guys. You've got Dan Abner, Aaron Dempsey-Gavald, and all these different people. But they all have different takes on Horus when they write him. They all have different takes on Fulgrim when they write him. They all have different takes on Lionel Johnson when they write him, right? That shouldn't be the case. That shouldn't be the case. Too many cooks spoil the broth. The Horus Heresy series should have 4 or 5 writers maximum, and that's it. Nobody else gets a look in. These are the 5 we're going with. These are the 5 or 4 who are going to be writing these novels going forwards, and that's what we're doing right now, until the end of the Horus Heresy. And the Horus Heresy wouldn't take 15 years to finish for me. I would say, no, this is a 10-year project, right? You're all going to get paid very well. This is a 10-year project. You're going to write nothing but Horus Heresy books. You're going to get in a room, you're going to get in a WhatsApp call, whatever you need to do. You 4 are the Horus Heresy team from now on, writing these books together, right? That doesn't mean we collaborate on every single novel, but we do on some. But certain characters are written by certain novelists, and that's it. When you have different characters being handled, well, the same characters being handled by different people, they seem like different people to me when I'm reading them, and it doesn't come across very well. Number 4, a real reluctance to actually finish the damn thing. What's wrong with finishing the Horus Heresy and moving on to the Scouring? You know, this is what they'll end up doing anyway. When the Horus Heresy series finishes, and its bloated mess is concluded finally, you know they're gonna end up going and doing the Scouring, and things like that. You know, so I just don't understand why we can't just let the Horus Heresy be. Let it finish at 20 to 25 books, and then get on with some more interesting things. But let's solve it. I'm not here to just give you problems, I'm here to give you solutions. So, this is my plan. So, Kevin Roundtree, I'm sitting at Games Workshop, and Kevin Roundtree busts open my door with his boot, and he strides in, and he says, Northern Exile, we need you, man. You need to come in here and do the Horus Heresy series for us. We need somebody to act as a cowboy, to harangue all of our main writers into doing certain things. And you get to decide the direction of the Horus Heresy. Go. Right? That's my fantasy. And here's my plan. Every book in the Horus Heresy series, in my Horus Heresy series, is a 600 plus page epic, similar to Brandon Sanderson in size. So if you've read Chronicles, King Killer Chronicles, things like that, right? Every single book is around that size. And the series is around 25 books long. Okay? I can go shorter than this. I can go to 15 if we cut out a lot of the chaff. But some of it I quite like, so, you know, we'll get into that in a minute. Each author is responsible for one set of characters and their arcs. So, Dan Abnett is responsible for the original trilogy of Horus's Fall to Chaos. He's responsible for Horus Lupercal in books going forward, and he's responsible for the Lunar Wolves and Sons of Horus going forwards too, even if they appear in somebody else's books. Aaron Dembski-Bowden is responsible for Chaos, Demons, the Emperor himself, and the Traitor Legions as a whole, Night Lords, things like that. And if they turn up in other books, again, he'll handle those too. Graham McNeil will handle the Assassins, forming the Inquisition, the Knights Errant, and the Cabal and John Grammaticus, their storylines, okay? Handles all of those. And John French, of course, handles the Mechanicum, the Titan Legions, and the book Talarn, which is still in the series, but I've not actually planned for it. You can whack it in any way you want. So, why did I do this? So, books can be co-authored. Alright? So if Horus turns up in a Fulgrim book, so Fulgrim's written by ADB, Dan Abnett would write the Horus parts with input from ADB, and so on, right? So if Horus turns up, so it'll actually get to this really cool bit where we get the authors talking to each other through their characters, so that if Fulgrim talks to Horus, it's actually ADB writing Fulgrim's dialogue, and Dan Abnett writing Horus's dialogue back at him in the book, you know, with them both collaborating on those conversations and how they turn out and things like that. So every single character is written in the same voice the entire way through, and we get this nice canonical, sturdy portrayal of the characters of the Horus Heresy. That's what I would do. The final trilogy, I did it as a final 5 books in the end. But the final 5 books is a full collaboration between the 4 authors. So all 4 authors get their, you know, they write different parts of those final books because when everybody comes together. So if we have a book called Fulgrim, it'll be written by ADB. His name will be on the title, but it'll also be featuring Dan Abnett or featuring Graham McNeil, if some of their characters are in that book too. All right, that preserves everybody's voice. And it makes sure that also we're getting different writers doing different things, right? We're getting different voices for different characters, but those characters stay stable in their voice and their outlook. All right, so folding the storylines, what would I cut? What would I cut away from the Horus Heresy and say we don't really need this, right? Well, in a word, nothing, because a lot of the stuff that I would cut doesn't actually have anything to do with the Horus Heresy. So, the earlier Dark Angels books, nothing to do with Horus Heresy, get rid of them, right? Scars, hardly anything to do with Horus Heresy, get rid of it, right? Almost all of the novellas and the combination, you know, Shattered Legion stories, fold them into something else. They don't need to be having their own books so you can milk some money out of your fan base, okay? So, number 1, most storylines I would consider side storylines, like Legion, Nemesis, Angel Exterminatus, and others, are folded into the main epic novels. Nemesis, for example, is combined with Angel Exterminatus into the epic novel Lord of Iron. This novel covers Perturabo dealing with the Alpha Legion, who are then contacted by the Cabal, the Alpha Legion I mean, to divert the Nemesis assassins from killing Horus. Right? So we combine all of these things. So Perturabo is fighting with the Alpha Legion because the Alpha Legion are doing their own thing. The Alpha Legion at this point are loyalist, right? So the heresy is already kicked off. The Alpha Legion are loyalists and they're fighting against Perturabo. And then all of a sudden they are contacted by the Cabal and certain elements from Legion happen, right? Where we're saying, look, the Cabal need Chaos to win so that Chaos is finally defeated. If Horus wins, humanity is annihilated and Chaos dies, essentially. And most of the Alpha Legion say, hey, we'll go with that plan. Some of them, with Omegon, don't, and they leave. And, you know, and they head off to keep fighting everybody. And that's when we bring in elements from Nemesis. So we see the assassins being born and coming into the setting, and they are going after Horus. And the rest of, and some parts of the novel then are about these guys, the Iron, about, well, not the Iron Warriors, but about the Alpha Legion subtly diverting these assassins from killing Horus onto killing Fulgrim instead. Okay? And that's when we get down to the Pot and Angel Exterminatus, where Fulgrim takes a bolt round directly to the head by a sniper. Alright? That was I think it was a Raven Guard sniper. Well, in this book, it's actually a Vindicare assassin who nearly takes Fulgrim's head off with a bolt round, and then we deal with the assassins trying to get away from the traitor legions, who are, fucking coming after them. And then we go into Angel Exterminatus, where Perturabo and Fulgrim, who is now healed, go towards the Angel Exterminatus. Then all of the people who've been chasing them up until this point catch up with them. And we get the final bits of Angel Exterminatus where Fulgrim ascends to demonhood and, Perturabo just basically leaves, right? That's the Lord of Iron. So you can see how we're combining all of these different books that had different themes, different things, and we wrapped them up together. I've explained it in a terrible way, because I'm not very good at, I'm really good at writing these things, but explaining them, I get very overly excited and I just, splurge don't want to say that. Forget I said that. But, you know what I mean? I just blabble on and I just really like talking about this stuff, so. But that's what I would do with these books. The extended size of each novel means that the Horus Heresy is truly epic in scale. Each Horus Heresy book is epic in scale, right? We've combined 3 novels into one there, with Legion, Nemesis, and Angel Exterminatus. Okay? We've combined... we've got Perturabo at the start of the novel, fighting the Loyalist Alpha Legion. We've got the parts of the Cabal from the book Legion coming in, and turning most of the Alpha Legion to, fighting for Horus instead. And in doing so, they know there is a cabal of... not cabal, that's a bad word. Knowing that there is a group of assassins out there that the Cabal have told them are going to kill Horus. And they're going to succeed. Well, the Alpha Legion go out there, they divert these assassins to killing Fulgrim instead. Because they see him as a bit of a liability. Okay? They nearly kill him. And then we go into Angel Exterminatus, where Perturabo's like, well, what the hell? I'll go try and find this, big weapon with you, Fulgrim, that's fine. And that's when the Loyalist members of the Alpha Legion finally catch up to them, and that's when, Fulgrim sends the Demonhood and things like that. So we've removed the Shattered Legions from that story, because, as far as I'm concerned, they're going to get their time in the sun later on in our series, and you will see that as we start to talk about it a bit later on. So, as I said, the extended size of each novel means the Horus Heresy is truly epic in scale. Each book will come with a replete galaxy map inside, showing how far the war is progressing since the last book. Continuity is key. Now, because most of these events are happening side by side in the Horus Heresy, so the Dark Angels are, the Blood Angels are fighting Khorne demons at the same time as the Runestorm is just about kicking off, things like that. It means that, we can't tell this in a canonical way, in a chronological, this happens, and this happens, and this happens, and this happens. It's more of a jumping around. But we solve this by taking on the Horus Heresy in different arcs. And you'll see what I mean by that now. So, this is the main series of the Horus Heresy for me, as I would write it. As you can tell, I put a lot of work into this, so please be kind. But this is how I would do it. So I've laid out how the Horus Heresy is going to work and being written so far. This is the series as I would do it. So let's go for it. So, the original trilogy. We have Horus Rising, False Gods, and Galaxy in Flames. All by Dan Abnett. We're getting a nice... I would not change those novels at all. I really like them. Yeah, I really like them. So we have a nice, stable start to the Horus Heresy. We know how Horus falls to chaos. And we get the Istvaan 3 incident, And then we move on to the Istvaan arc, which is Istvaan 5, the Drop Site Massacre. We're leading up to the Drop Site Massacre and what happens immediately afterwards. So, we have a book called Warp Spawn, which is combining Flight of the Eisenstein and the Death Guard stories. Because, for me, the Eisenstein didn't really need its own novel. Okay? We would have Mortarion and the Death Guard They don't really... Again, please don't... We need to get away from this thought of every legion needs its own novel. No, it doesn't. The Horus Heresy needs a series of novels, of which the legions are a part. So Death Guard don't get their own novel. Dark Angels don't really get their own novels. Nobody gets their own novels, really. Okay? The Blood Angels may get one, to be honest. That's because of the part that they will come to play in the climax of the series. But most of the time, legions don't get their own novels. They form parts of others, right? They come in and they come out. They're doing their own thing, as a real war would, right? So, our first book in our first main arc is considered the Istvaan arc, and it's called Warp Spawn, and it deals with the Eisenstein and the Death Guard chasing the Eisenstein and then getting corrupted by chaos, right? So it's all to do with that, and the Death Guard are driven off of the Eisenstein by Rogel Dawn. So they don't just find Rogel Dawn out there, okay, just by accident. Rogel Dawn sees a huge fleet coming through the ether. He's like, what the hell's going on, you know? And the Eisenstein turns up because it's ignited its warp drive, and so, or whatever it's done to set off a beacon. He's like, this is very strange. He comes over to investigate. The Eisenstein comes in. They have he's told of Horus's treachery. And he doesn't just go for Terra. He doesn't just go home to Daddy. The Death Guard turn up and they say, oh, you're all witnesses now, so you all have to die. And of course, they are bloated monstrosities at this point. You know, they've been sucked into the warp and turned into these horrid things. And so Dawn sees this and goes, oh my shitting god. Fights them off, and makes his way back to Terra, right? And that's the end of Warp Spawn. So, Massacre. This has come, and I didn't want to touch certain books. Certain books I revere as being very good books. Fulgrim is one of them. So, for Massacre, this would actually combine with the actual Massacre Horus Heresy book that came out for the 30k rules. So, I'd name it the same thing. So, Massacre, it combines the Fulgrim book with certain Shattered Legion novellas. So, we have the Dropsec, you know, it's got the Fulgrim book all the way up to the Dropsec Massacre, Ferrus Manus, things like that. Ferrus Manus dying, and then stories of the Shattered Legions after that, doing their own thing, trying to get away from the Istvaan system. It's a very tragic, sad novel. Is Massacre. It's huge, and it covers things like Sharokin and you know, Medusan and people like that. They're all introduced here. And they're doing pretty badass stuff and getting their Primarchs the hell out of Dodge if they can. Or getting as many men as they can the hell out of Dodge. And it ends with a massive fleet battle between the Emperor's Children and the Shattered Loyalist Legions, which just about managed to escape. So we get some sort of hope for the Loyalist Legions as they escape into the warp. The Lord of Iron, we've already covered that. Okay, so that combines Nemesis, Legion, and Angel Exterminatus. So it's kind of a sequel to Fulgrim, but it also, you know, shows us how things are progressing in the war. And then we get into the open war arc. So this is the arc where all the shit's hitting the fan. Everything's going crazy. Everything's going completely mad. We have the open war arc. So Of Sons and Wolves is our first book. And it combines 1,000 Suns and Prospero Burns and the start of Master of Mankind. Why the start, do you say? Well, at the very end of that book, Magnus is trying to find the Emperor in the warp and tell him he's sorry. You know, because he realises what he's done now. He realises how he's fucked up, essentially. And we see the start of the Master of Mankind. Now, do you remember that dream sequence at the start of Master of Mankind where Ra, the custodian, is talking to the Emperor as a child? Well, in this book, that's Magnus. So Magnus is talking to the Emperor as he was a child. His Emperor shows him, you know, memories of himself when he was a kid and the first murder and stuff like that. And they talk about what's to come. And the Emperor basically says, you know, you've doomed me. In almost every future I see, you've doomed me to die. But I still love you, sort of a thing, you know? We see a more human side to the Emperor. So very tragic. as we're going on. I like tragic stories, you may have noticed. So we have Vengeful Spirit. That covers the Battle of Molech, as Vengeful Spirit does in the mainline stories too. And much of Horus's time in the war, gaining more power. So in the Battle of Molech, in Vengeful Spirit, Horus goes into a portal and then just comes back out again, much older. Lame shit, right? I'd give this probably to Dan Abnett. Say, look, go for it. You're gonna take Horus. He's gonna go into this portal, and I want at least a quarter of the book to be Horus fighting tons of demons. I want to show how badass Horus was even before he received his powers, because this guy has to go toe to toe with the Emperor in the end, and kind of win, right? So we see him gaining his power, and in the end, he meets the Emperor psychically. Right? He meets the Emperor psychically on his way out of the portal, where the Emperor says, you know, I can end this now. If you just come back to me, I can take all of the war power away from you. You'll be as you were, and you just need to come back to me, and we can stop this now. And Horus has that final decision to make. One last chance to turn back. And he steps through the portal. And that's it. Right? And that, we then snap to Master of Mankind. And that's when that book opens, and we've combined the two. So Vengeful Spirit, see what I've done there? So we got, you know, Vengeful Spirit, the ship, yes, but also the spirit of Horus and the spirit of the Emperor, seeking vengeance on each other for what the hell's going on, okay? And so Master of Mankind is folded into the second half of Vengeful Spirit. We chop a lot of it down, right? We don't need to see all the Mechanicum stuff, really. We don't need to see all of the knights and things like that, really. We need to see the war in the Web Way, and we need to see what the Emperor thinks about what the fuck's going on. And that's the end of Vengeful Spirit. And Horus still comes into it in visions and stuff, but, like, you know, he's the Battle of Molech is finished at that stage. So, Anvil of Blood is the last story of the open war arc, and it covers Vulcan and Corvus and their shadow war against Conrad Kurz, who hunts them. This didn't happen in the lore, but the Horus Heresy has rewritten lore as it's gone. So I would actually have a sort of void war take place between the remnants of the legions of Vulcan and Corvus and those two Primarchs against Conrad Kurz. And you can have Conrad Kurz tormenting them and capturing Vulcan, doing all that stuff if you want. But I would have those three legions beating the living shit out of each other to give them something to do, essentially. I don't really like doing this normally, but I bet Aaron Dembski-Bowden can make a really cool, or someone like that can make a really cool novel out of this. I really do think so. So yeah, that would be my... It's dealing with the last bits of the aftermath of Istvaan, what's going on with Corvus and Vulcan, what the hell's going... So we're combining elements of Vulcan's, the Salamander stories, Corvus's stories, and we're also combining Kurz's story as well, all into the same novel, Anvil of Blood. Again, 600 plus page epic, so you've got more than enough space to do that. Right, we then move into the Betrayer arc. I'm going to take a sip of tea because this has been a long video. So, the Betrayer arc. Very important. This is the first time we actually go back in time. Because every single novel up until this has been chronological. You know what I mean? So we had Of Suns and Walls, which was start teaching you about the Thousand Sons and Magnus, and then of course Leman Russ and taking on the Thousand Sons and murdering them. And we have the Betrayer arc, which starts with the First Heretic. Now, the First Heretic, I love that book, but I would actually combine the First Heretic and Betrayer, okay, into a single novel. And I would combine flash forward elements into Master of Mankind. So we would have certain parts of Master of Mankind are in the First Heretic and Betrayer. So we get the Emperor's justification for, chastising Lorgar and for talking and for betraying Angron in teleporting him away from his forces on what's it called? Mercuria, whatever it's called. Anyway, we actually get his take his psychic taker, he tells Ra what the hell, why he did all this stuff, right? Or he might even tell Magnus. That'd be really cool. So him and Magnus are still talking in the warp. So you can have Magnus saying, well, why did you chastise Lorgar? He's one of my best friends. Why didn't you help Angron? Blah, blah, blah. And the Emperor tells him. And that forms part of the... It's like a in media res. So, like, we stop the action for a bit and the Emperor talks to Magnus for a while. For like a chapter. Then we carry on with the action. And then 6 chapters onwards, we get another Magnus and Emperor chapter. And we do it that way. And that's the first heretic. When we cover the first people to fall to chaos. And we also cover the World Eaters becoming more and more savage, and we basically the first heretic and betrayer happen essentially, and they're combined into one novel with bits of the Emperor and Magnus spliced in between. The next book in the betrayer arc is called Ruinstorm, and it covers the formation of the Ruinstorm. It covers the Word Bearers, Night Lords, and World Eaters fighting the Ultramarines. Right, so we're covering Calth, things like that are going on. So we've led directly on from First Heretic to this, where we're seeing the actual... you can see how it's not chronological, like, most of this stuff is happening at the same time as other stuff in the series, but we've split them off into different arcs. So these different arcs are chronological, right? They go on one from the other. So, but the Ultramarines are saved by returning Vulcan and Corvus, who are being pursued by the Night Lords, who are also here as well. So, in fact, no, I got that wrong. So the Night Lords are already there with Conrad Kurz, and Vulcan and Corvus come back down, and they say, fuck you, Conrad, after we've just had Anvil of Blood. They say, fuck you, Conrad, and they come down, and they help the Ultramarines, and they drive off the traitor legions at that point, okay? Right. There is no Imperium Secundus. I know that's going to be controversial. I don't think it goes anywhere. I don't think it adds to Guilliman at all, to be honest with you. And I think Guilliman, at the start of this book, we could really have Guilliman already contemplating that the Emperor's probably dead, and so he's biding his time. He's hesitating, right? And through his hesitation, let's not forget, the Emperor is put on the Golden Throne. Most of the things that happen in the Horus Heresy are because he didn't just go for it and try and get past the Runestorm straight away. Okay? Because we know it can be done. Because it did happen. The Blood Angels got through, right? So, we can deal with Guilliman's guilt after that. He feels a lot of guilt and saying, look, he doesn't need to feel guilt for establishing the Imperium Secundus. It's a storyline that doesn't go anywhere. It meanders around. It doesn't do anything. So let's just cut that down and say, no. Guilliman's guilty. He feels guilty because when Sanguinius and Lionel Johnson get there, they're like, what the fuck? Why aren't you on Terra already? We've been fighting all of these traitor legions out there. Come and help us, for God's sake. You need to come and help us, right? That's what we're doing, okay? Well, the Lion never makes it to Mccrag either, which is... Well, he does, but, like, I'll get into that in a minute. So, the next novel, Eyes in the Dark, that covers the forming of the Assassins and the Alpha Legion infiltrating the Sol system, as well as the Knights Errant fighting off the Alpha Legion. So it's like a book that covers or the setting up of the Solar War, essentially. We're putting the chess pieces on the board. And we also have Horus in there as well. He's directing the Alpha Legion of what he wants them to do. And the Alpha Legion go about their own business. But we also have Alfarius and Omegon fighting each other. Yes, they're not a part of the same Legion anymore, remember. Because Omegon took his little bit of the Legion, said, we're staying loyal to the Emperor. You're insane, Alfarius. And we get a nice big fight between them. We could even have Alfarius killing Omegon here if you wanted a big death at the end of this novel. Up to you. I'll leave that up to you in the comments. All right, so we've concluded the Betrayer arc. That's done, right? So we've learned about the Word Bearers, the World Eaters. We've seen Vulcan and Corvus come back into the story from their previous arc. We've seen Guilliman now, and all the things he's riddled with guilt and stuff. And we've started to see the Sol system. We've started to see the light at the end of the tunnel now, as we barrel towards the conclusion. So, we come into what I think is the most epic arc in terms of warfare, the Fallen Angels arc. Okay, so the first book is called Bloated, because of course everybody thinks that Sanguinius is the heir apparent to the Emperor, so Bloated, and that's what the Khorne demons call Sanguinius, because they think he's the blood heir to Scarbrand or someone like that, who's going to take over their place as the main demon for Khorne, essentially, right? So, Blood Heir follows the Blood Angels, travelling to Sigma Prime. As you can see, we're jumping backwards in time again. At the start of every arc, we jump backwards in time to see what other legions are doing during this period, as the Horus Heresy breaks out and continues. So we have the Blood Angels travelling to Sigma Prime, and their confrontation with Khorne demons, Carbander and all that, and Sanguinius getting beaten up. And we cover the Black Rage and Red First. So this is the only novel, really, where we only cover one legion. But I think it's very, very important, because Sanguinius is one of the main frontline Primarchs that we haven't seen yet. And he's going to be very integral to what happens in the Horus Heresy going forward. So this is the only, as far as I know, legion, only one legion story in the books, in the series. Blood Heir is probably the shortest as well. I'd probably say it's around 400 odd pages, which is still bigger than any Horus Heresy book that's out there now, but it's not quite an epic story as we've been having all the way through this, right up until now. Alright, the second one is called Angels and Iron. So it shows Lionel, and this is also not in the canon right now, but I would have it here, right? This is how the canon changes. It shows Lionel Johnson taking on the Iron Warriors beyond the Ruin Storm. So we get some more Perturabo in there. Because all Perturabo's done right now is basically had a fool made out of him by Fulgrim. He still looks pretty cool, but he's had a fool made out of him by Fulgrim, basically. So we have Lionel Johnson, because, no, don't forget, we have that short story where Lionel Johnson is suckered into giving the Iron Warriors weapons that they then use on the Dropsite Massacre, right? Because he thinks the Iron Warriors are still loyalist. So, we now have Lionel Johnson taking revenge for that, or trying to anyway. He takes on the Iron Warriors beyond the Ruinstorm. So this is before the actual Ruinstorm novel. Well, it's during the Ruinstorm novel, basically. It ends with the Iron Warriors leaving for Talon, because they need to get away from the Dark Angels, because the Dark Angels are just smashing them at this point. And the Dark Angels follow them, right? But they head to Mccrag. I would actually change where Talon is, right? It would be much nearer to Mccrag. But because the Ruinstorm forms whilst they're in the warp, the Dark Angels end up on Mccrag, essentially. And they see the last bits of the novel Ruinstorm. They see the last bits of that novel. So, we then go on to a book called Trespasser. Okay, this follows Kurz on his rampage across Mccrag, which I really liked in Unremembered Empire. It's one part of the novel I really liked. It seemed to put Conrad Curzon in a way overpowered light, but I'll get into that another time. It deals with the assault of the Night Lords and Wordbearers, but both legions are broken by the arrival of the Blood Angels and Dark Angels. So, whilst we have the Ruinstorm novel, where the Ultramarines are saved by Vulcan and Corvus, right? Where they're fighting on Calth, but Vulcan and Corvus save the Ultramarines on Calth. Well, we now have the end game to that part of the Betrayer arc in the Fallen Angels arc, where these two, where the Blood Angels and the Dark Angels turn up almost at the same time over Mccrag, and we have this huge battle between the World Eaters, the Word Bearers, the Night Lords, the remnants of the Salamanders versus the remnants of the Salamanders, the remnants of the Raven Guard, the remnants of the Ultramarines now, because they've been taking a beating, the Dark Angels and the Blood Angels. And of course, the Loyalists outnumber the traitors at this point. So, we kind of get a reversed Istvaan Dropsite Massacre, where the Night Lords, the World Eaters and the Word Bearers are basically smashed. They lose nearly half of their numbers in this fight, and they pull back from Mccrag. They say, well, we've done the Ruinstorm, let's just get to the other side of the Ruinstorm and help out Horus. Because in this, the traitors aren't fucking idiots, right? They have a single thing that they want to accomplish in the end, and that's helping Horus win the Civil War. The only one who's a bit unhinged is Conrad Kurz. But he goes along with everyone else because, you know, he wants to live and he wants to prove he wants to just go and, you know, force everybody to see how evil they are on the inside, kind of a la the Joker, I suppose. But yeah, they head towards Terra. They can get through the Ruin Storm, of course, because it's their storm, and they're off towards Terra. So, the final bit of this book, Trespasser, right, has the Blood Angels and Dark Angels and Ultramarines fighting their way. They're following in the wake of the traitor legions to get through the Ruin Storm. And the only ones to make it are the Blood Angels and a small contingent of Dark Angels under the command of Cor Swain, which is what happens in the actual novels as well. And they make it to the Sol System. That's the end of the Trespasser novel. So a huge novel, right? You know, absolutely massive novel. Probably one of the biggest we've had so far. And finally, probably the second shortest novel after Blood Heir, Marshal of Darkness. So this is Horus marshalling the remaining traitors to strike towards Terra. So this is we're covering, you know, how all of the traitor legions interact with each other. We cover the arrival of the Night Lord, the remnants of the Night Lord's Wordbearers and World Eaters to the marshalling of all of the traitor legions. They are followed by the Blood Angels and Cor Swain, right, or Cor Swain of the Dark Angels, and they fight for a while. That's the big fight that happens in this book before Sanguinius is called back to Terra by Rogel Dawn and says, right, I need to go. They're going to come towards Terra, and he turns to Cor Swain and says, just make them pay for it before he leaves. He knows his duties on Terra. He's seen where he dies, remember. He knows his duties on Terra, so he leaves. And the rest of the book is about Cor Swain of the Dark Angels fucking up the plans of the traitor legions to leave. The traitor legions are going to leave much sooner than they actually end up doing so because of the Dark Angels and Cor Swain basically holding them heroically in the system. In the end, the only one strike cruiser of the Dark Angels escapes, and it's got Cor Swain on it, and he heads towards Terra as well. But Horus is pissed by this point, like he's ready to rock. Have you noticed how he hasn't fought Lemon Russ? Yeah, because that's ridiculous. It just takes away all the stakes from Horus being attacked and things like that by the Emperor later on. What I would say is that if we're going to do the Leman Russ fighting Horus, it should be earlier on in the story rather than later on in the story before he gets his powers from Molech. But anyway, it is not in my story because we do have Leman Russ arriving later on. So that is the end of the Fallen Angels arc, and we're now into the end game. All right, we've seen most, if not all, of the Primarchs at this point. We've not seen the Khan, but remember, this is a 25-book series, and I've only given you like 10, 15 books. So we could have things like, you know, Pathway of Heaven and things like that. We could have things like that going on in the background. I've just not mentioned them here. This is my mainline Horus Heresy series. So, the Siege of Terra arc. We have the first book of the Siege of Terra is called Praetorian. Then it follows Rogel Dawn, who we've not seen since the earliest part of the Horus Heresy series. It follows Dawn defending the Sol System. He finally corners and kills Alfarius, just as the Blood Angels and Dark Angels arrive. So we've seen that book already. I quite like that book. But we also get the Blood Angels and Dark Angels arriving to help him seal the deal in killing Alfarius, essentially. We have the Solar War, which is kind of unchanged, but still got some stuff going on. Which the fight for the moon takes place between Horus's forces and the Imperium. And Mars is also lost to the Dark Mechanicus, right? So the fight for Mars is going on for a lot longer in this book, in this series, than it is in the actual Horus Heresy series. Because that's how I like it. That's what I like it to do it that way. But with this now, the end game really starts, because now the Mechanicum, the Dark Mechanicum, are in control of Mars. Horus is fully resupplied. He's got tons of ships, tons of everything, and he's coming straight for Terra. Straight for it. We have Paradise Slain. Probably the longest book so far. So Paradise Slain covers the war on Terra. It covers the Khan fighting Mortarion. It combines most of the Siege of Terra books into this single book. So most of the Siege of Terra books are in this final, pre-final book, when we get to see Khan and all the humans and everybody fighting to buy the Emperor some time to get things sorted out so that the Emperor can enact his plan to destroy Horus. That's what we're going on. We're fighting and we're dying. We're trying to also buy time because communications are coming in this book that Lionel Johnson and Robert Gilliman, the Ruin Storm has passed and they're on their way. Right? The Ruin Storm is no longer a thing because the Chaos Forces, demons, and, well, the Chaos Gods are charging Horus so full of power in a desperate move to kill the Emperor right now that they've actually taken the Ruin Storm and said, look, you just have all this power. So Horus is even more powerful now. Like, he's ready to go. And we're coming into the final book. It's called Only War, which harkens back to the actual, in the grim darkness of the far future, there is only war. Well, our final book of the Horus Heresy series is called Only War. And the final book, and it details the sacrifice of Malcador, but before that, it details the final formation of the Grey Knights and Inquisition. The Emperor fighting on Terra, so he actually steps off of the Golden Throne and he's fighting amongst his men. So I really want a really cool scene of a normal guardsman fighting back to back with the Emperor of Mankind. How fucking cool would that be? It's not an Astartes, a normal guardsman. Like, literally, it's a normal guy. He's fighting, and he just surrounded in golden light, and he's like, what the hell's going on? And he doesn't realise that the Emperor's right behind him, fighting right back to back with him. Because the Emperor's dulling him and saying, no. Because if he realises I'm here, he's going to stop fighting, he's going to get himself killed. So he's just fighting there as well. That'd be such a cool thing that I'd want to see in Only War. As like a final, this is how badass the Emperor is. And this is how much of on the side of mankind he is. He won't even let one normal person die. All of his tools, he doesn't give a shit about. His Astartes, the Primarchs, whatever. He doesn't give a shit about them. He cares about the people. He cares about humanity. That's who he cares about. Right? And I wanted to get that across in Only War. In a scene like that. Okay? And later on, we see, of course, the final confrontation on the Vengeful Spirit. And the one thing that snaps the Emperor into finally annihilating Horus is that Horus kills Olanius Pius. But I'm going to say he actually kills John Grammaticus. Right? The Emperor doesn't know who John Grammaticus is. He thinks he's a normal Imperial Guardsman. But John Grammaticus has actually taken on the role of Olanius Pius. Okay? And he's charging towards Horus with a blade that can kill him, right? Because he's now going against the Cabal. He's turned against them, said, no, this is wrong. Humanity shouldn't die. He goes and he tries to kill Horus. Horus flays him alive, obviously, with his power, and just laughs while he's doing it. And also gives him a true death, right? He's obliterated to the point that he's a perpetual, and he actually is made to die. Fully. He can't regenerate. Because he's atomized, essentially, right? He might be out there in the warp somewhere, but essentially he's gone. And that's the final thing that the Emperor needs to say, right, fuck this guy. And he kills Horus. And obviously we have that moment where Horus comes back to himself, realises what he's done, and then gives the Emperor tacit permission to just end him and get rid of his soul. And the Emperor does that. Steals his determination, does that. And of course, Rogel Dawn finds the dead body of Sanguinius, and the Emperor takes the Emperor. We have the Emperor going into the Golden Throne, where he repeats the opening mantra of the setting, when he says, I fear that in the far distance of our future there will be only war. And then he goes silent, He doesn't say anything else. And that's the end of the main series of the Horus Heresy as I would write it. So, what do you guys think? Would you write it in a different way? I know I've missed stuff, but that's why I've left room, you see? That's why there aren't 25 books here. So, I know the white scars aren't really in it, you know. People like that, I find them very interesting. I just would have them doing their own things in different books that are written by different people, you know. There are no anthologies here, so maybe we could even work it into one of them. But as far as I'm concerned, this is how I would write the Horus Heresy. If you've not seen your favourite Primarch, you know, chances are they're going to be in other books of the 25. But this is the actual main line, you know, the fights that define the Horus Heresy. You know, each and every book that deals with other things spins off from one of these books, because these are all the main books that show how the Horus Heresy went from A to Z, essentially. And everything else, unfortunately for me, is background noise. I know Lehman Russ isn't in it as much as he should be. I would actually have Lehman Russ making it to Terra, and that being the thing that actually, you know what? Yeah, let's give Lehman Russ, right? Let's give him a badass ending here. The thing that causes Horus to drop his shield on his battle barge is that Lehman Russ arrives on Terra and starts winning the war. You know, because the Space Wolves are here and they start winning the war. They actually start winning the fight, and we see that last bit of hope where we see, look, you know, everyone's gonna live, everyone's gonna survive, and that's when Malcador starts to fail on the Golden Throne, and the Emperor can sense it. And he knows, I either end this now, so I can get back to the Golden Throne and fix this, or I don't. And that's when the shields and the battle barge come down. And he says, right, I've got to go and take on Horus. And that's what happens. So I would give, you know, this is what I mean. So there's room here for other Primarchs and people to get their time in the sun. This is just the main skeleton of how I would build the Horus Heresy books, if I was going to have them written by these 4 authors that I've chosen. So what do you guys think? How would you guys change the Horus Heresy series? Are you as disappointed in them as I am? Because I'm really disappointed in the Horus Heresy series. I thought it could have been something truly epic and amazing. Right now, it's a money-grabbing exercise, and I'm not that behind it. Anyway, as always, I love you all long time. I'm really, really glad that you got to join me and go through this. If you need any models, you know where to go. Composite Games is down below, and they will be happy to give you that 25% discount at checkout if you use the code Northern Exile. Love you so much, guys. See you later. Have a good one.